We all love wrestling secrets. In fact, we are obsessed with them. The rumors and murmurings are what keeps so many people hooked to sports entertainment these days, and why the hell not? It's there to bring you joy, and if that's how you find it, go nuts. Over the years, though, so many of these have been turned into utter nonsense because we're all idiots and we believe too much. Yep. Hello, I am Simon What Culture. Please do subscribe. And this is 10 wrestling secrets everybody knows except you. When I say you, I mean me. And also you. Number 10, that Shield myth everybody believes. Way back when, there was chatter that Chris Hero was meant to be part of the Shield. I think even CM Punk mentioned this at one point, and yet after all this time, no one did the smart thing and asked Hero until In the Ropes finally did. And do you want to know what he said? He had no clue what we were talking about. Or at least not in the context it became. Because when this was talked about as an idea, Punk just wanted to have a group with Chris, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins. They weren't the Shield, there was no Shield, the Shield hadn't been invented yet, so saying Hero was meant to be in it was annoying. That's not my words, that's what Chris said. He also mentioned that he had never chatted to CM about this, so it quite literally was something that got pinged out there, and that was that. Will this ever die though? Of course not. Number 9, stop getting old WWE pay-per-views wrong. I get it. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, you don't know. But a lot of fans who are relatively new to pro wrestling find old WWF pay-per-views and get very confused. Why? Because they can seem a bit boring. For you see, unlike the modern world where the pay-per-view or premium live event serves as the payoff to a story or a feud, in many ways it was just an over-the-top exhibition with a couple of fights that actually had narrative and consequences. Vince McMahon would much rather you bought a ticket to a future event or find them on television, so it was balanced as such. It's why you can find cards that have 14 matches on them. Nothing really happens for large parts, but that wasn't the point. I mean, the fact you even got to see a superstar was meant to be enough. I would never fly in 2022. Number 8, the difference between booking and matchmaking. It's why if The Rock and Roman Reigns do go at it at WrestleMania 39, the reason will be because it's super duper cool, which was the same when Stone Cold Steve Austin took on Kevin Owens at this year's WrestleMania. I mean, the reason behind it was due to the fact KO hated Texas. You don't need to worry about it. There are exceptions, as Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins killed it in 2022, but usually it's one angle, one night, repeat it for a few weeks, do something else. It does seem slightly mad as wrestling never ends, so you'd think some extended storylines would be the easiest way to fill TV time, but no. We'll just do another Battle Royal instead. Number 7, the never-ending WrestleMania III attendance row. Given that WrestleMania 3 happened in 1987, it's amazing that we continue to talk about how many people actually went to the event. The announced figure of 93,173 was debunked by the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, who said there was closer to 78,000 paid, which is still pretty impressive. This is where the difference of opinion may come into play, however, as years later when we got to Mania 32, Vince McMahon admitted he counts every single person in the building for these numbers. The wrestlers, the staff, himself. If you are standing somewhere on the premises, you're going in. Even then, it seems unlikely an extra 15,000 people were just hanging out playing Nintendo, and I would hazard a guess that as the Pope had drawn 88,000 people to the same arena in September 1987, WWE just wanted to say they beat him. This goes further too because apparently when his team found out about what they'd done, the Pope's number magically increased to 93,682. You gotta love it. Number 6, the lack of stadium Attitude Era shows. When WrestleMania 17 was announced for the Houston Astrodome in 2001, people could not believe it. The popularity of wrestling had reached such highs they could pack fans into this kind of a building, yet today we just do that all of the time. In fact, I will put my life on the line that now Mania will never be held anywhere but a stadium again. I just want to make it very clear that I do not mean that. It's my life. That would be stupid. The truth, though, is that WWE waited until this chapter of their history before they pulled the trigger on such things. There were exceptions, such as a Raw that drew 41,000 in Toronto Sky Dome in 1999 and 45,000 in the Georgia Dome later that year, but otherwise they stuck to their usual routine until this moment. Then the gloves came off. So you could say the success of the Attitude Era wasn't physically showcased till well past the millennium, hence why the first Stone Cold Rock WrestleMania clash happened in the first Union Center in front of a crowd that was only just over 20,000. You think they'd do that now? No way. Number 5, Andre the Giant, the legendary myths. Andre the Giant was amazing. Do not be swayed any other way. Andre was also legitimately enormous, but because he passed away a full decade before the internet became a thing, a lot of these numbers have been sent wildly out of proportion. Some wrestlers will still tell you he was 7'3", he was not, and Hulk Hogan went as far as to insist he once saw the Giant down 108 beers in 45 minutes. Andre could clearly put them away, but that's just silly. The Hulkster would also say he needed special toilets, and this is why good practice is to watch the newer documentaries about the Hall of Famer to get a true reflection of the man who really did change the industry forevermore. I mean, there's a reason we're still talking about him right now, and it's not because he once ate a car or something. That would be a waste of time anyway. Number 4, Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, and wrestling unions. So for years, we have known that Hulk Hogan was responsible for stopping the WWE unionizing in 1986. As the story goes, Jesse Ventura was all ready to do this when Hogan snitched this out to Vince McMahon, and the whole thing was stopped. This has taken on a life of its own recently, so the best thing to do is get the exact account from Ventura when he appeared on Steve Austin's podcast a few years ago. Jesse spoke about standing up in the dressing room in the build to WrestleMania II and said, "If we go together, we can simply tell the media we are not wrestling unless union negotiators by federal law come in and give us the opportunity to unionize." Everybody was ready to storm the gates, and then 24 hours later, Vince called him and threatened to let him go. It then got even crazier, as after this pay-per-view, Ventura left the company for a while to film Predator, which meant he was now part of the Screen Actors Guild, which, yes, is a union. As he had this, and as Jesse put it, the rest of the boys were too stupid not to join him, he promised to never try again. The final piece, of course, is the proof that Hogan was responsible for all of this, and it actually came out during the deposition Ventura brought against, wait for it, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. This was all situated around money and rights, so when the question of a union came up in court, Jesse's lawyer simply asked Vince who had told him, and he stooged Hulk off instantly. It was at this moment that the friendship between Hogan and Ventura basically came to an end, as the latter realized the former was basically all about himself and what cash he could get. So that's the way it went down, my friends. As long as you believe the body, of course. Number 3, Vince McMahon is not funny, says John Moxley. You only need to find any John Moxley interview to get his opinions on his run with WWE, because the dude is an open book and happy to talk about it. This was especially true when he appeared on Talk Is Jericho and really wanted to get into the truth behind Vince McMahon's unique sense of humor. The worst, or best moment, came when Mox was handed a script where it said he had to talk about a pooper scooper. Yep. Enraged, the then Dean Ambrose decided not to say it and panicked because he knew if Vince saw it, that would be that, he'd love it, and it would be a must. Instead, Ambrose and the writers changed it to Dean telling the audiences he wouldn't come in front of them even if he was wearing a gas mask. And what happened the next week? That's right, the lunatic fringe was told to walk to the ring wearing a gas mask. He was also immunized so he wouldn't get their diseases, but that is how it happened. McMahon saw one line and turned it into a whole angle. It sucked. Number 2, papering the house. Thanks to the world of social media and accounts like WrestleTix, you can find out what is actually happening when it comes to sales for any promotion. Even then, though, you'd never know if there's a bad draw on TV. WWE and AEW have become masters at making sure every single show looks packed. The true masters were TNA because, seriously, go and watch any event they did in the mid-2000s and try and guess what the attendance was. If you assume it's 10,000 plus, you won't be alone, because those guys just knew how to make even the smallest crowd look monstrous. It's a real skill. The other secret that's not chatted about too is the fact that yes, companies give out free tickets, because of course they do. If you haven't been able to shift them, you want to get people through the door anyway, so be it promotional schemes, offering them to radio stations, schools, shopping centers, whatever. Nothing beats a sold out house, so you gotta do what you gotta do. Number 1, Sasha Banks' 2020 numbers. It seems like Sasha Banks is going to leave WWE. We don't know this for sure at the moment, but the chances are high, and as and when she does, her in-ring legacy will be enough to rival anybody in history. And the one figure I want you to take away today happened on the 8th of November 2020 edition of SmackDown. On this night, over 2.5 million people tuned in to see Banks take on Bayley for the Women's Championship, and not even the awesome Roman Reigns has been able to outdo that since he returned to the blue brand earlier the same year. The real shocking point is that this was in the flippin' Thunderdome, so fans just really wanted to see Sasha become the champ. Why? Because they like her. Know of any of the wrestling secrets that everybody knows except you and me and everybody else? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always, and my secret to you right now is that I'm not actually bald and I wear a bald wig. Or at least that's what I've been telling myself for the last 7 years. Gosh, how I miss my hair.